Rejected Moon. Episode 2. Cast Out. Written by Mia. I did what Mara told me. I went home, and I locked my door, and I told no one what I had felt, which was easy, because there was no one to tell. My hut sat at the low end of the hollow, where the ground went soft toward the stream, and the good families did not build. One room, a packed earth floor, a hearth I kept banked because firewood was something you were given, and I was given little. I sat on the edge of my cot in the dark with my knees drawn up and my back to the wall, and I waited for the thing that was supposed to happen to a rejected Omega to finally come and take me down. It still did not come. What came instead was the warmth, low in my chest, turning slowly, patient as a sleeping animal. Every time I was certain I had imagined it, it moved again, and I pressed my palm flat over my breastbone and felt it answer the pressure, like something leaning into a hand. Near dawn, when I could not stand the not knowing any longer, I did a reckless thing. I knelt at the cold hearth where last night's fire had died to a gray bed of ash, and I held my open hand above it, and I thought, carefully, the way you'd coax a frightened pup, "Come here." The ash stirred. Deep in it, a single ember woke, a coal I would have sworn was dead, and it brightened from gray to dull red to a clean, hungry orange, and a small flame stood up out of the dead fire and leaned toward my palm. It did not burn me. It bent the way a flower bends to a window. I felt the warmth in my chest turn over, pleased, and I understood with a lurch of pure animal fear that the two things were the same thing, that the flame was leaning toward me, toward the thing the broken bond had woken, and that whatever I was now, it was not an Omega who could be looked through. I should have stopped there. Any sensible creature would have stopped there. Instead, I knelt and did it again and again because 19 years of being nothing had left me starving for proof that I was something, and the proof kept coming when I called it. I drew the flame up tall and let it sink. I made the clay lamp on the sill brighten without my touching it, until the little room swam with gold and my own shadow leapt enormous up the wall, and the warmth in my chest purred like a thing being scratched behind the ears. It was the most company I had ever had. That was the part that frightened me most. Not the power, but how badly I wanted to keep it close. How easily I could come to love a thing that arrived when I called, after a lifetime of doors that did not open. "Tell no one what you felt," Mara had said. I was beginning to understand it was not only the pack she was afraid would find out. It was me. I snatched my hand back. The flame sat down into the ash and went out. I knelt there shaking until the sky outside went from black to the color of a bruise, and then I made myself get up, because it was morning, and morning in the hollow meant work, and I did not yet understand that the work was over. The hollow had a new way of not seeing me, and it was worse than the old one. The old way had been indifference. I had been furniture, scenery, a pair of hands. The new way was fear, and fear has eyes. I felt them on me the whole length of the central path, flicking to me and away, to me and away. A mother drew her pup against her skirts as I passed. Old Hesper, who had bought eggs for me for years, made the moon sign over her chest, 2 fingers touching brow and heart, the gesture you make against ill luck. The bread I had set out to trade the day before yesterday still sat on the trestle, untouched, gone hard. No one would take food from my hands now. Tessa was at the well with her river pearls still in her hair, glowing with the new bond, and when she saw me coming, she went silent, and the cluster of girls around her went silent, and for once in my life Tessa had nothing kind-seeming to say. She only watched me with her river pearl shine and her wide, frightened eyes, and I realized that I would have given anything, the morning before, to make Tessa afraid, and that now that I had, it tasted of nothing at all. Wren. It was a boy, one of the warrior's apprentices, sent to fetch me. He would not come within arm's reach. "The elders want you," he said, and turned and walked fast, glancing back to be sure I followed and not, I think, to be sure I had not vanished. They met me in the council lodge, the long timber hall where the Hollow's decisions were made, and I had never once in my life been inside it. 6 elders in gray ranged along the far wall, Braun in the center with his bond records open on his knees, and Cale. He stood apart by the cold central hearth in the place an alpha stands. He had not slept. I could see it, the gray under his eyes, the set of his jaw gone past stone into something brittle. When I came in, he looked at me, one full look, fast, the way you look at a wound you are not ready to see, and then he looked at the fire that wasn't lit, and he did not look at me again for a long time. "There is no precedent," Braun began, in the dry, careful voice of a man reading from somewhere behind his own eyes. "An omega called to the center. A choosing that burned past every record we keep. A bond severed lawfully before witnesses, and a rejected wolf who does not break." He turned a page he was not reading. "The moon answered for you, Wren of no house, and then it did not let you go. Do you understand that this frightens us?" "Yes," I said. My voice came out steadier than I was. "It frightens me too." That seemed to be the wrong answer, or the right one made wrong by my saying it. One of the older elders, Sava, leaned forward. "What did he waken you?" she said. "When the alpha cut the bond, what came up?" I thought of the ember bending to my palm. I thought of Mara's hand at my throat. "Tell no one what you felt." "Nothing," I said. "I felt the bond break. That's all." Sava looked at me the way you look at a child who has just learned to lie and not yet learned to do it well. But she let it stand. They had no law for me. I could see them feeling the edges of that. 6 people who governed by precedent finding none. And people who cannot name a thing will, every time, choose to put it at a distance instead. For a moment no one spoke, and into that silence Sava said the quiet thing they had all been circling. "There are those who would want to know of this," she said, not to me, to the room. "The old orders kept watch on lights like that one, in my grandmother's day. If such watchers still ride, and word were to reach them that Greywada had produced such a thing and hidden it." She did not finish. She did not need to. A different fear moved through the gray robes then, older than their fear of me. The fear of being noticed by something larger than themselves. "No word goes east." Cale spoke for the first time, and his voice came down on the hall like a dropped bar. The elders turned to him.
"No rider."
No message. No story carried to market and traded for the pleasure of being the one who knows it. Whatever she is Greywada's, and Greywada settles its own troubles inside its own fences. His gray eyes did not come to me. The first wolf who goes looking to make themselves important by carrying this east will answer to me for it. He had thrown me away under the open moon not a day before, and now he was building a wall, fast and hard, and I understood with a strange lurch that I was standing on the inside of it, and that he would have bitten through his own tongue before he let me mistake it for kindness. "You will move to the boundary croft," Braun said at last, "below the eastern ridge. You will keep to it. You will not come into the hollow proper until the elders have understood what has happened here." He closed the records. "It is not exile. You remain Greywa." It was exile. We all knew the boundary croft. It was where we put things we could not throw away and could not keep close, a half-collapsed shepherd's hut at the very edge of the territory, against the treeline, where the land stopped being ours and became no one's. To be sent there was to be set just outside the circle of the fire, near enough to see the warmth and not near enough to feel it. Until you understand, I repeated. I was surprised by my own steadiness. And if you never do? No one answered. That was the answer. Cale caught me at the door. He did it without seeming to, falling into step as I left the lodge, so that for 3 paces we walked together out of sight of the elders, and the bond, the dead bond, the bond he had cut in front of 300 people, pulled tight between us like a string that had only been pretending to be slack. He felt it. I saw him feel it. A muscle moved in his jaw. "The croft is sound on the south wall," he said, low and fast, not looking at me. "Sleep on that side. There's a spring 40 paces east, behind the leaning rock, clean. The traps on the ridge path are mine. I'll have them lifted by dusk, so you don't lose a foot in the dark." He stopped. We had reached the edge of the lodge's shadow. Wren. I waited. Whatever he meant to say, he could not get it past the closed door of himself. For one moment his gray eyes came to mine, and there was the grief again, raw, astonishing on the face of a man who had done the thing himself, and then he mastered it. "Keep to the croft," he said, and it came out hard, an order, the opposite of whatever the grief had been about to say. "Don't give them a reason." A reason for what? But he was already turning, already the alpha again, already walking back toward the people who needed him, not to have a wound. I stood and watched his shoulders go, set against that wind only he could feel, and I thought about his hand opening and closing at his side under the moon, and I hated, with a suddenness that frightened me, how much of me still leaned toward him the way the flame had leaned toward my palm. Mara came to the boundary croft at dusk, while I was still trying to make the place fit to sleep in. She brought things, a blanket, a twist of dried meat, a clay lamp, the small, unglamorous mercies no one else in the hollow would risk being seen to give me. And she brought one thing more. She waited until the lamp was lit and the door was shut against the cold coming off the trees, and then she took from inside her robe a small object wrapped in oiled cloth and put it into my hands. It was a pendant, a disc of pale metal, worn almost smooth, on a cord gone soft with age. When I tilted it to the lamp, I could just make out what was stamped into the face of it. A moon, but not the round full moon of the choosing. A moon eaten halfway to nothing. A moon with a bite out of its side. "That was your mother's," Mara said. I had never, in 19 years, heard anyone say the words "your mother" to me as though the woman had been real. "You knew her." It was not quite a question. The warmth in my chest had gone very still listening. "I knew her." Mara's voice had changed. The madness the pack laughed at was nowhere in it now. I knew her, and I knew what she was, and on the worst night of my life, I carried what was left of her lying 3 valleys through the snow and laid it in the one place the people hunting her would never think to look, the bottom of a pack so small and so poor it wasn't worth a second glance. Her old eyes were wet and steady. "I put you in Greywater because no one looks for a queen in a laundry." She sat with that a while, the lamp throwing its small gold over the bones of her face. "She was the bravest fool I ever loved, your mother," she said at last. "She thought she could live in the open, that the world had forgotten enough to let one of them simply be. A hearth, a child, an ordinary, unremarkable life. The world had not forgotten. They never forget. Forgetting is the one thing they cannot afford." Her hand found mine in the lamplight and held on. "The night they came, she put you in my arms, and then she did the only thing that has ever turned them back even for an hour. She lit herself up like the dawn, so they would chase the light and not the cradle. I ran east while the snow came down pink. I did not look behind me because she had spent her whole life so that I would not have to. Mara's voice did not break, but it thinned to almost nothing. You have her exact eyes when you are about to be stubborn. I've spent 19 years waiting to be afraid of those eyes again. The words sat in the cold air of the croft.
Queen.
I wanted to laugh. I was a girl in a dead woman's gray dress in a shepherd's hut at the edge of the world, and the only crown anyone had ever fitted to me was the word Omega. Mara.
My mouth was dry.
What was she? Old, Mara said. Older than Pax. Older than Alphas. The moon didn't choose a mate for you tonight, child, because the moon doesn't choose mates for its own. It only ever lights the door and waits to see what you'll do. That light tonight wasn't a bond catching. She closed my fingers around the bitten moon pendant, hard. That was your blood waking up. And there are people in this world who have spent a long lifetime making certain that particular blood never wakes again. They will have felt it tonight, the way you feel a bell in your teeth. Wear that under your dress. Tell no one your mother had a face. And Wren, she stopped at the door, a small bench shape against the last gray light. When the one who watched you from the tunnel comes back, and he will come back, do not believe him just because he is the first person in your life to look at you and want what he sees. Wanting what you are is not the same as wanting you. You'll need to learn the difference faster than is fair. Then she was gone. Back up the dark ridge path toward the warmth, she could still stand inside, and I was alone in the croft with a lamp and a dead woman's broken moon, and a word I could not make fit. I did not sleep. Late, with the lamp guttering, the warmth in my chest turned over hard, all at once, the way an animal lifts its head, and I knew, before I knew how I knew, that I was being watched. I went to the one window, a square of dark cut in the south wall, and I looked out at the tree-line where our land stopped and no one's began.
Eyes.
Low in the dark under the trees, catching the last of the moon. Two eyes, set wide and high off the ground, higher than any gray wolf stood. Silver, not gold. Watching the croft. Watching me. And as I stood frozen with my hand pressed to the bitten moon at my throat, the thing in the dark did not lunge and did not flee. It simply lowered its great head once, the smallest bow, and held still and waited, as though it had crossed 3 valleys to do exactly this, and was in no particular hurry now that it was done.
I did not blow out the lamp.
I stood at the window with my hand on the bitten moon and let the great silver creature hold my gaze across the dark, and neither of us moved, and the warmth in my chest turned slowly toward it, the way it had turned toward the flame and toward the cut bond and toward every other thing it had decided, without once asking me, was mine. Behind me in the hollow, 300 people slept who were afraid of me. Out here at the edge of the world, one thing was not. I knew, standing there, which of the two I would walk toward in the end. I think some part of me had always known. To be continued. That was episode 2 of Rejected Moon. If the moon has you now, the next episode is waiting. Subscribe so you don't lose the trail. The complete book is available on Amazon, and early episodes and bonus chapters are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I've Mia.
Thank you for listening.